Checking.
Check. There we go.
All right, good. We got it now.
Yeah.
Just a moment. Yes. Hold on, folks. We're here.
What's going on, everybody? This is the Jimmy Doan Show.
4 o'clock.
That's right on time. We are live, streaming to this guy George's Facebook page. Hope you're with us. And we do this twice a week these days. Hey, Gene, what's going on? And 4 o'clock on Sundays and Wednesdays.
And Wednesday. Counselor Curtis.
That's me.
And Jimmy Doan.
That's him.
That's moi. That's right.
So,
day after. This is what is it? Black Friday. Black
Sunday.
Black Sunday, right? Well, I mean, it's
Black Weekend.
It's also Cyber Week. They're calling it.
Cyber Monday is
Cyber
tomorrow.
Monday is tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's right. So that's good.
Cool.
Start off with a little quote that I picked up for no reason at all. If a nation values anything more than freedom, it will lose its freedom. And the irony is that if it is comfort or money that it values more, it will soon lose that too.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, and that's W. Somerset Maugham from 1941.
41.
But yeah, that's the. There's other ways to say that. I think Ben Franklin also had another way to say that.
Yeah.
Anyway, interesting news. A couple things. There was bang out, breaking news. Of course, you can't turn on CNN without seeing the thing at the bottom that says breaking news.
Right.
I mean, everything is
right.
breaking news. And of course it is, I was looking at the Yahoo News thing and about the couple of things that came out as part of the Friday evening dump. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but Friday evenings is when a lot of the stuff comes out that is not going to be reported in the mainstream news because it's Friday evening and everybody's going to go home for the weekend or something.
Got to pick up the tabloids where the real news is.
That's right. So apparently there was a couple of dumps. One in particular, which I thought was fascinating, and we'll talk about this a little bit. And the guy who had the seminal take on this, though, and I must commend him, is Scott Adams.
Oh my God, Scott! What do you have something on Jimmy here? Every time we do a show, he plugs your show.
It's great. No, he's really good. And I sent the link out, I think, on my Facebook page, and it was something he did. He analyzed the dump. This was the U.S. impacts of climate change are intensifying, says a federal report.
Yeah.
And it was the report was horrible. We are doomed, horrible. A massive report issued by the Trump administration on Friday emphasizes the dire threat that human-caused global warming poses to the United States and its citizens. Earth's climate is now changing faster than any point in the history of modern civilization, primarily as a result of human activities, researchers say in the report, officially Volume 2 of the National Climate Assessment. The 1,600-page report details the climate and economic impacts of U.S. residents. We'll see if drastic action is not taken immediately. The last few years have smashed records of damaging weather in the United States, costing nearly $400 billion since 2015. In a worst-case scenario, the researchers say climate change could deliver a 10% hit to the nation's GDP by the end of the century. And of course, what Scott said, and this is so true, he says, wait a minute, by the end of the century? Well, you're talking 80 years from now? And one of the things that a lot of people in economics or in investments know is what they call the rule of 72. The rule of 72 says that if you take an interest rate and divide it into 72, that's the number of years it takes to double your investment. So if you, for instance, have a dollar or $100,000 invested, let's say at 3%, that means that that's every 10, 12, every 14 years or something like that, it doubles.
Okay.
3 into 72, whatever that is.
Okay.
And of course, conversely, if you have 6%, it takes less time to double. So the point being that with 3% GDP growth, if you do the math, every 15 years, the GDP doubles. Well, between now and the year 2100, that's 3 doublings. That is, it goes from our current GDP of 15 trillion to 30 trillion, and to 60 trillion, and to 120 trillion. That's the GDP. Mm-hmm. And a 10% off of that gets you down around 110 trillion. And that would be the doubling, roughly, of the population, let's say. Now, this is all wild pie in the sky.
Look, my first thing, anyone who starts talking about 2100,
yeah,
Get real. I mean, you don't know anything about 2100.
No, you don't.
Nothing. You know nothing about 2100.
Well, as
we
you
can
said-
all be computers by 2100.
Not only that, as you said, we could have unlimited energy
Oh, well, that's good.
easily
That
by
was-
2100. That's the fusion thing.
Right. That is coming up.
words, fusion.
Exactly. That is coming, like, from my perspective, it looks to me like it's 15, maybe 20 years out in terms, I mean, they're building the machines.
Yeah.
They're sustaining the reactions for measurable periods of time
Right.
now. So what we're talking about here is calculus at this point. We're talking about how finely can we reduce the invariances here until we can control that wave.
Right.
The technology is all known up to, I mean, this is not like the battery that Tesla's trying to invent or
Right.
something. This is stuff that people are reasonably sure is going to work. I mean, it's going to make sense. The problem is we just haven't had the time and effort and just hadn't. Now, obviously, there's some sticking points. You know,
Right.
it's a huge undertaking. It's like
course
going
it
to the moon, but we're going to get there.
We went to the moon.
We went to the moon.
That's right. So the point being, and you're exactly correct. The 80 years out is what a joke. I mean, and to think, but what I'm
Magic.
saying is,
Technology
but
will
what
look
I'm
like
saying is
magic.
they're talking about the dire consequences. But even using their figures, it's great news.
Oh,
it
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
get any better than
Well,
this.
I've pointed this
no,
out
it's
for a
not
long
dire,
time.
It's great.
I pointed this out. The IPCC reports, the worst projections in the IPCC reports talk about a couple of degrees change again by 2100.
Yeah.
A meter of sea level rise by 2100, which that's 3 times what the prior raising or whatever, but it's tiny, teeny tiny, and you will know. There's a very clear indicator, and Scott pointed this out too. I was glad he figured this out, and that is when the people on the coast, when the rich people on the coast start to move inland, then you'll know that something is afoot.
Right.
Until then,
Right.
man, this is just a political. This is like Al Gore out there trying to get some money to and scare people. They talk about. I saw Eleanor Cliff on the McLaughlin report. She's
God,
like,
yeah.
"Oh my God, my kids, my grandkids." She's like, "Trump won't live." I'm like, "Trump's got kids.
Yeah.
He's got grandkids. You don't think he cares about his grandkids? I mean, come on. Yeah, everybody does." And so. That's my thoughts. It's just another.
And you're right. I mean, it was interesting. I watched that was the McLaughlin Group, which, as I mentioned, has reverted to free. They tried to charge for it for a couple of weeks, and the viewership dropped off to nothing.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, they get about as many views as we do. So.
Right, that's true. But I thought it was. But my point is that the climate, the 80 years out, of course, is such a joke on so many levels.
So many levels.
And but was touted as when you look
Science.
as science, right? And this is exactly what. And I'm sitting there thinking, you why would you do this except, as you say, the fear factor?
Right. Now this is totally this is straight out of the "you're gonna die unless you give me money" playbook.
Exactly. And it's a shame because some of the mainstream, I was looking on Yahoo News, for instance, and they were touting it as this is what's going to happen.
Of course. I mean, I shouldn't say of course. I mean, I think they're just falling in line.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the stalking heads don't know the.
No,
science.
that's the other thing. As Scott has just said, they don't know anything. I mean,
Right.
they're not CPAs. They're not climate scientists. They're reading off a teleprompter, for
Right,
God's sakes.
right.
So okay, and along with this, interestingly enough, kind of a little tributary here, the French police.
Aha! Well, I can take us to France.
Oh, can you do that?
I
Okay,
can take us to France, and I have a special treat if I do this right. When we get to here, we go. So,
You keep coming.
fire up the transporter.
That's right.
Gotta get some. Kablamo!
Oh God, look at this. Where am I?
Look, you are at a live shot of Paris right now.
Oh, cool.
You're in a tower somewhere down by the port.
Okay, cool.
So that's real Paris burning in the distance behind you.
All right,
And,
this is good. Well, so anyway, what's interesting about this is the idea. What's the riding over? It's that the Macron has increased the fuel prices.
Taxes.
Taxes on
Right.
fuel, right? This is horrible. Now, one of the things you have to realize is that anybody, this is remember in the Paris Agreement, in his town there, the Paris Agreement said it's not that the climate change was not going to be cost free. That is to say, to ameliorate. And one of the things you're going to have to do is to have an increase in the prices of fossil fuels to encourage people to use renewable fuels, so that sort of thing.
I heard,
as soon as he did it, guess what? Rioting in
Well,
the
hell
people
yes.
were dying.
because it's real. It's real stuff. They talk about this, stuff in 2100. Come on, and they're going to hurt people today.
Yeah,
to try to take you
today.
right.
I mean,
The Paris Accord. This is the biggest joke. If you read through it, I can't remember the paragraph. It's like number 22 or something. Says any of the nations at their discretion can withdraw from this agreement at any time.
which we did.
Well, which we did. But what I'm getting at is that's not like a contract or anything.
No.
It's not. I mean, Beijing could literally turn around and just say, "Oh, no, we're out."
Well, not only that, they did say that we'll have it all in place by 2030.
Not only that, we're going to increase our emissions until 2028,
Right.
and then we'll start to go back down. And so, what kind of it's just the whole thing is just such a joke. And
Well, as you say,
you talk about Eleanor Cliff talks about, they are going to find market ways to fight the climate change.
yeah, and of course, here's the market. Okay, the market currently is rioting.
well, what's funny is her market solution is stuff like increased taxes.
Right, no.
As though that is the market. That's not the market. That's the government. It's totally different. So yeah, good.
I think it's so funny that instantaneously. I mean. I don't know when the price rise went up, but it was like yesterday, early this week,
and they're burning
immediately
cars.
30,000 people
go
to the Champs-Élysées and burn things.
You've said in the past, though. I mean, students in Paris will riot because it's like riot day. They have a special day. Yeah, get your batons and masks. But still.
And of course, with social media these days, you can tweet it out, and you have the flash mobs out there. 30,000 people apparently showed, and they were being hosed down. There was videos of this being hosed down with a big water cannons and everything like that. And they were they called them the yellow vests.
Oh yeah, because that's what they were wearing.
The protesters were wearing yellow vests. That's how you could tell the protesters. So here you are wearing a yellow vest, and the fire guys with their water hoses are trying to. Who shall we fire the water?
God, I mean, what is that? There's like part of the license to protest.
Know.
Okay, and all your people have to wear special bright yellow vests with targets painted on them.
That's right. So anyway, I just thought this was interesting. And of course, along with the tax, the government has also offered incentives to buy green or electric vehicles, and of course we've done that here in this country. As anybody will tell you, that if you take away the $6,000 subsidy or whatever on some of the quote electric cars, which of course, by the way, the jury is still out on whether they are green.
Well,
because of the manufacturing costs and that sort of thing.
Well, and not only that, but what we know is it's not that they're green; it's that they pollute in a different place.
Right.
You get your energy from the power line that comes from somewhere else where they had the coal burning power plant. So it's useful for redistributing the pollution,
right,
but not eliminating it.
Well, of course, it's funny you should mention that because it doesn't so much redistribute it as it does concentrate it over at the power plant.
Well, right. Well, but it takes it out of the road.
Right, it takes it out of the
you have
roads.
a place like L.A., which has more cars than the state of New York.
Right.
And I mean,
well, they've done a pretty good job in LA.
They have.
I mean, 20 years ago, you could not see anything in.
There's
LA.
I remember specifically getting a headache because I was outside in Riverside for a few hours, and then having to go get some oxygen to freaking get rid of the headache.
Well, I suppose in that one particular case, you needed the government thing. But of course, once they get their hand on it, they go overboard, and we've seen that. And I'm not going to talk. We don't have to talk about that. But here's another one. This is another thing. Talk about crazy ideas. Scientists are proposing an ingenious but yet unproven way to tackle climate change. They are spraying sun-dimming chemicals into the Earth's atmosphere. No, this is great. What could possibly go wrong? Now, here it is.
Yeah.
I am laughing because the research by scientists at Harvard and Yale, of course that's good these days, published and so forth, proposes using a technique known as stratospheric aerosol injection, which they say could cut the global warming in half.
Well, this is chemtrails.
Right. Well, no, chemtrails now are only about 30,000 feet. This is 12 miles up, which is 100,000 feet.
All right, but my point is this is literally exactly what the conspiracy theorists already believe has been happening for a long time.
Let me just continue. The technique would involve spraying large amounts of sulfate particles into the Earth's lower stratosphere at altitudes as high as 12 miles. Scientists propose delivering the sulfates with specially designed high-altitude aircraft, balloons, or large naval-style guns. Boom! I mean, you sit here and you think,
Yeah,
wait a
boy.
minute, they banned aerosol sprays, and now they want to go.
We're gonna blast the skies,
I just,
shoot the sun.
We're going to dim the sun. One of the things,
Yeah, right.
and I realize this is not exactly apropos, but what a person should do, it's interesting, is to go on some astronomy website and have the diagram of the planets versus the sun. They'll show you the sun.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the sizes of the
Oh, yeah,
planets, and you see the sun is here.
The sun is 99% of the mass in the entire solar system.
right. So here, and you have this dot.
Right.
That is the Earth.
1.3 million Earths fit into the sun.
Okay, so what we're going to do is this.
I'm gonna turn it off.
This thing that's 1.3 million the size of the Earth is going to dim the sun.
Right.
I realize they're only going to dim it to the Earth,
for us,
but
right,
still,
right.
I mean,
Sounds-
what could go wrong? And of course, the thing about it is, once you spray all this crap up in there. Oops!
Yeah.
It's like our bio plant here that they finally had to shut it down. But and it's costing us a fortune. But the point is, at least it's not online. Once you put that crap into the atmosphere, you ain't sucking it out.
And another hideous thing about the plan is that, by all accounts, a worse situation in terms of climate change would be global cooling than global warming.
Right.
So cooling causes famine, which causes mass death, crop failures, and everything. Cooling is way worse than warming. Warming, all we have to do is move.
Right.
There's plenty of land.
Plenty of land.
And
I mean, caribou. I'm up to caribou country.
That's it.
It's interesting because somebody was pointing out the other day during the last ice age. Apparently there is a very noticeable barrier someplace around Nebraska or something where the ice actually came down and stopped.
Oh yeah.
And so up to that point, I mean, below that the ice didn't. But I mean, it has retreated since then, 10,000 years ago, from the middle of Nebraska or Iowa or whatever, wherever that barrier is, all the way up to where it is now. Okay, and
right. Everybody knows that, and everybody knows the water level was down 80 feet 10,000 years ago.
You could walk to the Bahamas.
Right, and the shore of Florida was way further
That's what
out.
I meant. It went to the Bahamas.
Okay, right. So there you go. So, yeah, it's going to happen. That's been happening for a while. I mean, if you just look at the regular cycles, I keep going back to the Milankovitch cycles, the million-year cycle. If the million-year cycle holds up as it has for the last 10 million years, then we're going to get another 2,000 years of warming before we get 80,000 years of cooling. Two more thousand in the 20,000 years, and it's a 100,000 year cycle that warms for 20,000 and cools for 80,000, and it's a 5-degree switch, not a big, huge thing, nothing totally
In other
catastrophic.
words, the Earth is not going to collapse and sail into the sun.
No, and past human civilizations with zero technology have survived these changes, and so I think we're in a good shape in terms of that stuff.
Yeah, it was touch and go there for a while, but 100,000, 200,000 years.
Well, look, I have actually been studying a little bit of the great volcanic eruptions and the great asteroid impacts recently. And
Right.
it seems pretty clear that those are the things that drive the massive climate shifts.
Okay.
And what happens is there's a massive event, and then the Earth has to recalibrate for a while.
Right.
And so, and populations have to shift, and species die, and everything. And I mean, things like the
90-some% of the species ever existed on this. I mean, we're talking about not bacteria, but we're talking about real species.
Yeah, well, there was one of the impactor events at 250 million years ago killed 96% of the species right then.
Wow.
So, I mean, and the KT event, 66 million years, which killed the dinosaurs. No non-avian dinosaurs survived. Nothing aquatic over 50 pounds survived. 75% of the species died out just from that one event. And, of course, it gave rise to us, silver lining.
Yeah.
So, but that's the kind of thing that drives real climactic events. Or climatic.
Climatic, yeah.
Yeah, the
Both, I
climactic,
guess.
climatic.
Yeah, climactic, climatic.
And that and the volcanic eruptions, when you look back at the level 8 eruptions that have happened, they're responsible for things like Korea is probably there because there was a giant eruption about 600 AD which cut Korea off from mainland China, basically.
Oh, really?
A massive, huge level 8 event. And so there's a population right over here that's, you're not going to pass through the event scenario for 100 years or something, and then nobody goes back.
Events huge like that, of course, are catastrophic. There's that island that has the mountain on it that if it shifts and goes into the ocean,
100-foot tidal wave all around the world.
All around the world, right?
Yeah, the Oregonian subduction zone is the same way. Oregon's going to be wiped out pretty soon.
How about the Yellowstone?
Well, Yellowstone, that one has, the last eruption was 600,000 years ago.
Okay.
And the one before that was 2.1 million years ago.
Okay.
So that one they're figuring has some time left. We get a really big level 8 eruption about every 50,000 years.
Okay.
Well,
so that's going to be a problem if we become immortal and we turn into robots. Computer stuff. If we, what is the singularity?
Oh yeah.
The singularity is supposed to be on us in about 10 years. 29,
what I'm hoping is, of course, that by the time the computers take over everything, that they'll be able to predict those events a lot better. The ones on Earth, we can measure the changes in power as long as we can measure down deep enough, which we can't really yet, but we're getting a lot better at it than we were just not too long ago.
Yeah.
The big thing is still the asteroids. We still don't see the asteroids coming until they're a week or two out.
Yeah.
And it's like that. You could easily have a KT impactor event. And I don't know that we could stop it at this point. I mean,
well, they're doing a lot more research, and I'm gonna bring that up here in just a minute.
All you have to do is change trajectory of the asteroid when it's far enough away by a small amount.
Oh yeah.
But
a stitch in time saves 9.
But that's still kind of a tough haul at this point. I think we'll have it in the next 10 or 20 years. So
again, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, let me just think now. That I'm gonna have something to say about that on Mars in a minute, but maybe I should cut over there now. Tomorrow is a big day. Let me just see here if I've got it. It's out of order, but let me just make sure here. Don't go away yet until I get this.
That's a lot of pages.
Tomorrow's no, that's right. Okay, tomorrow's a big day. There is the Mars lander is
yes,
big day. Now wait a minute.
2001 Greenwich Mean Time.
Yes, that's right. And it's but it's going to be great because apparently it'll. What's interesting about it? I like this. Briefcase-sized CubeSats are also going to be launched on the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They have these are the little 30-pound suitcase-sized things.
Oh, nice.
That are going to orbit Mars.
That's what I was hoping that
they're going to orbit Mars. Wait a minute, it gets better. They're going to be the communications link between the surface.
Nice.
Now, what's interesting is
you talk about science.
No. I mean, think about this.
Rocket science.
It's 300 million miles away. Okay.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Now it gets better. There's a 6-minute time delay between signals. So if you're going to make any changes to the trajectory,
well, they can't on this one. This one's pre-programmed.
Is it?
Yes. The entire landing sequence is.
Oh, I know the landing sequence is.
Oh, okay, right.
But what I'm saying, they might have had a couple of course corrections, months ago.
Okay.
They were able to do that. No, but you're right. The fact is that it has to be automated. Why? There's no communication.
Well, yeah, because this one, as it enters the atmosphere, is going to heat up. It's going to get to like 2,000 degrees. Mm-hmm. And when it does, that's going to interfere with the communication.
Well, that's not all. The fact is it's still 6 minutes away.
Oh, yeah, there's that.
I mean, and there's that. And
yeah.
Even if it's sending a help message out.
Right.
It's too bad.
Well, where is, did they time it? I would presume that they timed it so that Mars was at apogee, or, on our side of the sun.
Oh, yeah,
so
for
that
sure.
it's closest to us
Yeah.
right now, so
Right.
that we can.
But it's still, it's still far enough away that it takes some serious time. I mean, I forget what it is, but Jupiter is 90 minutes round trip. Mars is, I think, is maybe 12 minutes a round trip or something.
Sounds about right.
Yeah,
We
I'm
should know
guessing.
that. Right.
But whatever it is, it has to be, as this one guy says, rapidly approaching Mars are the two smallest and cheapest spacecrafts ever to cross between planets. In the vanguard of what the U.S. and European satellite designers hope one day will be swarms of probes prowling the solar system. The two 30-pound spacecraft are cruising alongside NASA's Mars lander, the $828 million robotic probe called InSight that NASA engineers hope to land safely on the red planet. And while it makes its fiery descent, as you just mentioned, it's going to be hot, the tiny twin craft will hang back in orbit to act as a communications relay. And I love this one guy, the engineer and NASA guy says, we're keeping our fingers crossed. You're hoping for luck, okay.
Well, 45 missions have tried to get there, and only like 3 have actually made it. We're the only ones who've made it, the U.S.
Yeah.
And Curiosity, the rover, is still poking around.
Unbelievable, yeah, unbelievable. Anyway, but what's interesting, they figured out that these suitcase things are a tenth the cost to develop and took about a tenth the time, not a tenth the time. More conventional InSight lander took 7 years to design and build and test. The two Mars CO craft took just over a year. We were given 15 months to go from PowerPoint to finished product, and so and of course it only cost tenths of money. So that looks like it could be Vanguard, assuming it all works. But we will know by Sunday night. I mean Monday night.
Yeah.
So that to me is one of the exciting things that's happening in space. All right. Should the Supreme Court knock the first brick out of Apple's walled garden?
Aha! Well, let me take us back over to the Apple universe here, and kablamo!
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I see. I'm in Newton land.
That's right. You're still there. You're in a good spot.
On Monday, Apple will get a chance to stand before the highest court in the land and argue a case that's been grinding on for 7 years. This has to do with the apps that you get on your iPhone.
Oh, right. Okay.
And Apple has made it fairly strict about what you can put on. And this is one of the reasons that the Apple apps on your iPhone work so interconnectedly. They're really pretty good. They're bug-free because of the stringent requirements that Apple puts on apps that are submitted. They have to go through this whole process.
It's a monopoly, man.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And of course, they were trying to get it was a monopoly. And of course, what Apple has said is, we don't have any. We don't really have any. Well, how can I have? Let me just see what they said here. While many people see the App Store as a form of monopoly, it also has a lot of benefits. And so, what's the best way that this suit could turn out for consumers? Obviously, consumers like it the way it's working now. So, monopoly or not, and however you will have to rule it. Well, of course, what there was a case some time ago called Pepper v. Apple, and it was definitely decided whether the Apple Store functions as a monopoly. Argue apps would be cheaper if competing iOS marketplace existed. Well, really? I mean, the thing is that if
there was another company just as good as Apple,
right,
they have to compete against them.
Well, it's interesting because the history of computers, especially, is that the prices have come down on a lot of the hardware as entrants came into the arena. But it's interesting because Apple, especially with the Macintosh and this stuff, has maintained ironclad control over its software. Mm-hmm. And in fact, when they tried for a little while to license it before Jobs came back into the fold, it was a nightmare. And the first thing Jobs did when he came back and was CEO, he dumped it all. He said, "No, you guys are not going to license this anymore."
I don't blame him. Apple still works twice as well as PCs. It has for a long time, but it's still, I'd say, still significantly better. And it's like living in a different decade.
Yeah.
If you
well, what's interesting
Apple
is
products.
The Ninth Circuit Court decided, as you would expect, they're kind of an outlier in a way. Appeals court that's decided that Apple is indeed the one who's selling directly to the consumer. And now it's time for the Supreme Court to give its decision.
What's funny is the case is like 6 years old or something.
Right. And they're talking about it's already been resolved. Part of it's already been resolved. And so now they're arguing something that is is a moot point almost. But the thing about it that's interesting, and this is something also that I think that Scott Adams talks about, is the Supreme Court does not decide to take up cases unless it thinks there's a question.
Right.
That's why.
It gets to decide.
In other words, when
Most of the time.
most of the time, I mean, they get requests for 1,000 cases a year, and most of the time they say, no, we'll let the lower court stand. Mm-hmm. And so the only time they take up a case is when there's a dispute among courts, say, among the various courts. So now we don't know what the Supreme Court, but the idea that the Supreme Court would overturn the Ninth Circuit is, probably 50-50 or better, because they wouldn't take the case unless there was a chance it would be overturned. I mean, why bother? In other words, if they had already decided not to take the case, because then it wouldn't be overturned, the Ninth Circuit Court would stand, as it probably does with 80% or 90% of the cases that go through the Ninth Circuit.
Yeah.
So if they decide not to take it, then that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate in terms of their selection process. They take cases which present some distinct question,
Constitutional question.
and wide-ranging ramifications.
Right. So again, that's the even when they do it on a narrow thing, sometimes the decision will be very narrow. Sometimes.
Well, they try to make them as narrow as possible. That's judicial. That's judicial
prerogative.
Yeah, I mean that's.
Okay, the Ohio Supreme Court, speaking of courts, says bobbleheads aren't legally free giveaways. Now this is really stupid. This is when governments just are scrambling for every nickel. They are in the cushions of the sofa looking for change. Recently, the Ohio Board of Taxation ruled that Cincinnati Reds owed $88,000 in back sales taxes on promotional items the team purchased to give away to fans, mostly bobbleheads. Now, $88,000. I don't know what the Ohio budget is and how much they collect in taxes, but it's billions, okay? I mean, I don't know what it is. If it's anything like Florida, we're an $80 billion economy, and it is, And so they're panicky over $88,000, okay? I mean, no, this is scrambling for literally pocket change. So anyway, the Reds appealed to the Ohio Supreme Court on Wednesday, and the court gave the Reds a win. The deal was, if you, as you well know, if you buy something from CVS or something, you pay sales tax. But if you buy stuff to resell, you don't pay sales tax. We don't have a VAT here in this country. So if you buy 100 items from a wholesaler, you don't pay sales tax on that. So right yet. So the Cincinnati Reds were doing was buying thousands of these bobbleheads and then giving them away as to the fans when they came through the door, and so they said that the Ohio money grabbers said that the Cincinnati Reds were the final consumer should pay the tax on it. And Cincinnati Reds said no, these bobbleheads are included in the price of the ticket. Mm-hmm. We wouldn't do it otherwise,
Right.
And so it's a resale. It's a resale to that extent. And so anyway, the Ohio Supreme Court, and this is what this guy said was, he didn't. The idea was that no money changed hands, and when you go to pick up a bobblehead on your way to the ballpark on giveaway day, it's quite literally a giveaway. And of course, one of the things people wonder is, how did the Supreme Court come up with this idea? Well, who knows? I mean, apparently the reasoning, I don't have it here, but the reasoning was a little convoluted. But the fact is that the state is not going to get its $88,000. So tough. Yeah. Tough. Okay. Now here's another thing that we talked about this in the old Jimmy Dome show years ago, about the fact is that if you don't have a sun pass here in Florida, and you run through token thing, they snap your picture. And they send you a bill. I mean, I've had that happen to me.
Sure.
You're allowed to have, I think, 2 or 3
run-throughs
before they really nail you. And
then they send you the $100 ticket.
Right, then they send you the $100 ticket. Well, anyway, this guy of Key Largo was caught after being spotted last Saturday.
Conks.
He was chasing multiple charges for allegedly using a remote-controlled device that would cover his license plate with the press of a button.
Right.
And he had a remote control shield that would drop down over his license plate, boom, and go through. thing.
Keylogger key.
And the police believe that Davis was using the device to evade paying toll fees. No. Really? We had talked about this, about could you put a special kind of shield, a polarized shield, for
Right,
instance,
right.
that,
Well,
that would show the tag okay,
Right.
except with the flash.
Right, when the flash hit it, it would change.
It would change, yeah.
Yeah, that would be the way to do it. Obviously, this guy got busted because he had his shield down.
Yeah, they actually had the shield down. Yeah,
right.
that's right.
You'd want to have it.
What was interesting, he had the SunPass the transponder.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but he had it in a, and I've said this before. He had it in a bag, a lead shield bag.
Oh, is that right?
So it wouldn't transpond. This is one of the things I've said. If you don't want to be tracked on your iPhone,
Mm-hmm.
if you get yourself buy some snacks in the aluminum foil package,
Right.
eat the snacks,
Right.
and then throw your phone in there and seal it up, and it's you get nothing. Even when you turn it off, and I forget exactly what it is, but some of the phones, even after you turn them off, you're still being tracked.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it updates whenever you get into a cell tower range.
Right.
It pings the tower.
So anyway, the penalty for concealing license plates includes tickets and fines, and of course, some of the people are saying, well, we all have to pay fines. Why not him? How does he get away with it? I mean,
It's so
tolls.
funny because in Florida we refer to people who live in the Keys as conks, and they're a different breed. They're like islanders basically,
Yeah.
and they don't take cotton to being told what to do.
Yeah, that's right. They're one road out of town.
That's
yeah.
it.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, next item. Let's see. I think I might have a couple here. Yeah. This is China.
China. Okay, I'm gonna get us over to
Get us to China.
wonderful Beijing. It's a great place to be these days, and kablamo.
Come on. Where am I? In a questioning place?
Oh, you know what? I can tell by the tower behind you. You're in Shanghai. I'm sorry about that. It's a kind of a smoggy area there.
God,
It doesn't
that's a
look
lot.
so good.
Okay.
I'm in
good.
Beijing.
It looks like I'm sitting down for questioning by the authorities. Please don't.
You got Shanghai.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. This Italian outfit, Dolce and Gabbana cheese marketing scandal, is their fashion company.
Yeah.
Biggest faux pas since former Christian Dior had an anti-Semitic rant, and it's potentially more costly. And apparently these guys, two brothers I think they are, sell a lot of fashion stuff in China. And so they've been boycotted because of their ad. They had an ad making fun of the Chinese because they had a model who was eating pizza with chopsticks and slobbering it all over the place and everything as part of their ad. I mean, who thought this ad up? Can you imagine? I mean, and they're wondering why. Now they apologize and
They
everything.
had nobody Asian on their staff anywhere.
I mean, you think about it, their biggest market practically is China, okay? And are you telling me you put this ad out there in China?
I mean, it's got to go through the development, the pitch, not only the copywriter, the art director, and then they pitch it to corporate, and it gets, picked from a group, and then taken to legal, and they look it over, and everybody missed it.
So anyway, almost all major Chinese e-commerce sites, including Alibaba Group, which is a big one, holding LTDs, Tmall, JD.com, so forth, have suspended the sale of D&G products in China since the brand posted an ad showing a Chinese model struggling to eat Italian food with chopsticks, which consumers
funny,
just
though.
deemed condescending. Oh, the ad! Have you seen the ad?
Uh-uh.
It's a funny ad. It is funny. I mean,
It sounds funny.
and of course, it really. I mean, it's condescending on it. Oh yeah.
Okay.
No,
When I first heard it, I thought, oh, okay, it doesn't sound
no,
terribly bad.
No.
But if the people hate it, then they hate it. That's you're a company. You have to do corporate advertising.
So anyway, well, on a more serious note, in China, we talked about this once before. Beijing to judge every resident based on their behavior by the end of 2020.
Yeah.
Now that's not quite true. It's only in select cities, but
Right.
China's plan to judge each of its 1.3 billion people based on their social behavior is moving a step closer to reality, with Beijing set to adopt a lifelong points program by 2021 that assigns personalized ratings to each resident. Now, they're going to be rated on how good they are. Do you give to charity? Do you volunteer?
Well, the metric is obviously going to be some government person's metric.
No, it goes on. The Capitol City will pull data from several departments to reward and punish some 22 million citizens. This is in one city.
Right.
Based on their actions and reputations by the end of 2020, according to the plan on the Beijing's website. Those with so-called social credit will get green channel benefits, while those who violate laws will find life more difficult. The Beijing project will improve blacklist systems so that those deemed untrustworthy will be unable to move even a single step, according to the government's plan. And so Beijing's efforts represent the most ambitious yet among more than a dozen cities that are moving ahead with this program. They have a personal credit system earlier this year rewarding pro-social behaviors such as volunteer work and blood donations, while punishing those who violate traffic laws and charge under-the-table fees. So they have blocked more than 11 million people from 11 million flights and 4 million high-speed train trips. So, I mean, you go up there and, you give your card,
Right.
and you get,
Sorry.
you're, banned. I mean,
Not allowed.
this is
Can't
like,
play.
this is like 2084, 1984,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. I mean, God.
Yeah, it's incredible. It'd be interesting to see how it plays out. It's interesting that we have kind of a voluntary social system over here, in that if you do something horrendous, you're going to be plastered all over the internet, and people will shun you. But it's all voluntary. We don't have to a score or anything, and you can recover from it to some extent. But yeah, man, and we talked about.
Well, one thing you can do here is you change your name.
Well, there's that.
I would guess in China that's pretty tough to do.
Probably.
I mean, if you got that
more
card,
harder, yeah.
You've got your card that's you. It's like.
Yeah.
Embedded in you. We've seen there are movies like this all over the place.
Yeah.
I was looking at one. I was getting ready to watch an old movie that had this called Logan's Run.
Oh yeah.
It's on Netflix.
Oh, is that right?
I think it's on Netflix. Anyway, I was getting ready to watch it again, and it's like 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But they had a chip, that when they get to be 30 years old, they get to go do something, which of course kills them.
Right.
But anyway, it's just interesting. That's all that this was thought of 30 years ago.
Yeah, well, again, this is like I said, this is the social planner's dream. Keep track
Absolutely.
of all the people.
Speaking of social planning, we moved to Canada.
Canada.
Yeah, we moved to Canada.
I thought about bringing us to Canada, but I didn't.
No, that's okay. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government will extend a roughly $600 million in tax relief over a 5-year period to news media outlets it defines as, quote, eligible. According to the Toronto Star, the tax relief will include tax breaks for consumers who purchase subscriptions from news media outlets, refundable tax credits for news media outlets' operational costs, the extension of charitable status to non-profit news media organizations, registered charities with Canada, and charitable receipts to donors and benefactors for donations. The point being that they're panic-stricken about freedom of the press. So the way they're going to have freedom of the press is to encourage people through tax benefits to subscribe to certain magazines or newspapers, and
So they're favoring certain.
these will be eligible.
Right.
They'll be screened.
Right.
By
This goes back-
eligibility will be determined by the government.
You know what
And
this?
government established panels. Details regarding such determinations were not provided.
Yeah, I bet. This to me, this reminds me of Marbury. Excuse me, McCulloch
McCulloch versus Virginia. Or McCulloch
versus the
Maryland?
somebody
Yeah.
Bank of some.
Yeah, okay.
But the concept is here. Shoot, I lost my train of thought. Well, keep going.
Okay. So the eligibility will be determined by government.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's the power to tax is the power to destroy.
Right.
And the concept here is what we do is we level a huge destructive tax on all the news organizations, and then we exempt the ones we like.
Gotcha. Right. That's it. And it'll be determined by government panel.
That's it.
Yes, that's right. So Canada's finance minister said we've made some investments to ensure that we continue to have an important free press and ensure that we have a strong and healthy democracy to protect the role that independent news media play in our democracy, and so forth. So there will be some sort of, one of the comments was, so there will be some sort of Trudeau-appointed panel of journalists set up to decide which media organizations are, quote, legitimate enough to deserve the tax breaks from Ottawa. And if conservatives find a problem with this, they're conspiracy theorists.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
For sure.
can you imagine? I mean, what to call this preservation of freedom of the press is, I mean, God,
A little mental aikido
you
there.
know, what is it? Mock verboten, whatever. What is the work? It makes fun or something.
Right. We'll set you free.
Work will set you
Makes
free.
fun.
Yeah, right. Arbeit and fry, or whatever the hell it is, at the entrance to the Nazi concentration camp.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Oh my God, this is. I mean, and it's just hysterical to think that they can. It's not that they can't get away with it, because they can.
Oh, yeah, they
I
will.
mean, they've got the guns.
Sure.
So, you know.
Well, and not only that, but they've got those media outlets on their side for sure.
Yes.
They're going to publish favorable reviews.
Who
Look,
wouldn't?
the wise government has selected the appropriate news organizations and condemned the ugly right-wing, far-right, alt-right.
That's right. As
news-
conspiracy theorists, that's all they are.
That's right.
I mean, if you report anything that's unfavorable to the government, it's conspiracy theorist. I mean, you've done that, and of course, it's unfortunately, as we've talked about so many times, it is so easy to find government bumbling, and the results from some particular tactic that has been the reverse of what they intended. And we're having some of that discussions here in town, and I might talk about this on Wednesday. I don't know. People are dragging Hillary Clinton. I don't know what that means. After she said Europe should halt immigration to stop right-wing populism. Now, what's interesting, she's giving a speech over in one of her $250,000. Well, I think she's off that now, $10,000 maybe. She's out of favor. She's not getting the $250,000 speech.
Oh, she's not?
Oh, you kidding me? The Clinton Foundation is just about closed up.
You know how much Trump gets?
No.
1.5 million.
Really?
Yeah. For his speeches.
No kidding.
Yeah, he's the top.
I thought he wasn't allowed to earn that money. Is that an emolument?
I don't think so. I mean that's now I don't know that he's getting it right now as he's president, but that's what he got.
He's certainly not going to get it if he goes over to from French government and gives a speech. That would definitely be no good.
Well, it's funny because cousin Chad was bringing that up, and that was my example. Was the one thing that we see where there's huge amounts of money being transferred around is those speeches.
Well, those are people that are out of the government, though, pretty much.
Yeah. The other top earners are people like Clinton and
Right.
Both Clintons and Obamas.
Yeah.
And there's several other people who are up at the top there.
Multimillionaires, yeah.
Right.
Anyway, but what she said was, I think Europe needs to get a handle on migration, because that's what lit the flame, she told The Guardian when asked about the rise of populists across Europe. Now, what she's saying is, it's so funny about this, is she's saying you should limit the people coming into your country from, the migrants coming into your country. And the reason she gives is because what happens is that the people rise up and say, wait a minute, you can't do this. And those are the horrible right-wing people, populists, so to speak, as their country is being invaded and taken over, and they're fighting it back. And that's her problem. Is that now you've got the local citizens,
greedy local people,
who
just want to live in their own country, and not share it.
And what they're doing, of course, is as they're being elected, those people, they're crowding out the socialists. I mean, the fact is that the Bundesstaat or whatever it is, in some of these countries, if you have a turnover in the makeup of the parliament and more of the, quote, populists get in, that means, of course, that the socialists have lost that particular seat or election.
And there's been a couple of shifts to the right in some of the countries.
Yeah, no, that's
Austria,
that's her
Brazil,
Hungary, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I was going to say
Lithuania.
There's been
Poland, of course, has just been gone. They've said, forget it, we're not having anybody. I mean, it's amazing. So, so let me just think now. Let me just see what I got here. That was Europe needed to have a. I don't know what happened there. Okay, forget it. So anyway,
Well,
that's pretty much the
We
what it
should
is.
touch on the caravan. Of course, what's happening is what we predicted, which is it's a mess down there, and you've got
Total mess.
soldiers facing off with people, and regular people, and you've got immigrants stuff. We said, deploy the Sopwith Camel and shoot a few of them up and strike fear into their hearts. If you're going to use force, just do it one time, and you'll never have to do it again. And it'd cost a few $100 to hire the guy or something,
And a few $100. How many people do you think would do that for free?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, are you
could
kidding?
you could auction it off to somebody.
seriously.
Well, and of course, what we said before, of
It'd
course,
be
the
pay per view. Are you kidding? On top of the machine-
pay-per-view.
No, I'm serious. On top of the machine.
Here he
gun.
comes again.
The camera.
God.
I mean, you could do the whole thing. Here's a guy in his World War I uniform.
Right,
He's
right.
walking up to the
goggles,
the goggles,
the scarf.
and he's walking up. They have the camera on the Sopwith Camel. They start it up. Boom.
Yeah.
And he takes off down there. I mean, this would be the reality show from heaven.
Yeah, and you'd broadcast it live on the internet, and you would just say, "Look, here's his path. Get out of the way. He's coming. He's armed, dangerous, and authorized to kill. So if you're on the border when this guy cruises by, watch out."
Well, what's interesting, there have been two interestingly contradictory reports come out recently. First of all, apparently there's a new government in Mexico. I didn't know this. Apparently they just had a vote or something.
Yeah, get them all the time.
Well, yeah, it happens all the time, right? But at first, the idea was that we're going to take these guys and we'll take care of them and not let them go across the border or something. The new president came up and said, we're washing our hands of this. This is not our problem. That was like of yesterday. Day before yesterday, they had an agreement with Trump administration to take care. I don't know where it is. It doesn't really matter.
Well, those people didn't walk 1,000 miles to go to Mexico.
No.
So they're not going to be happy until
Well,
they...
and as we talked about on Wednesday, the local highbrow residents there are throwing rocks at them.
Right.
I mean, they don't get out. We don't need no.
Well, it is. Population shifts have always been trouble for the places where they go to. Yeah, I think Jordan is still dealing with some hideous freaking tent city with 1 million people, 3 million people, or something crazy.
Yeah.
So that's not what we want. We offered the solution. If you're listening, it's the Sopwith Camel, or it's
the paintball.
or the homesteading. Well, yeah, and the paintball thing is the way you keep the border protected,
Right.
which is you auction off the rights to a gaming company to sell remote access drones armed with paintball guns that patrol the border.
With the bank money inks.
That's it. And then they just paint them up, and it sends a signal to the border people. And they come.
Light them up.
That's it. I mean, it's perfect.
Yeah.
So, problem solved, Trump.
Yep, we got that. And last item I've got is Facebook looks like it's preparing for a war with Trump after hiring a top Department of Justice antitrust lawyer. This Kate Patchen, whoever she is, chief of the Department of Justice Antitrust Division in San Francisco, has joined Facebook as a director. Patchen's hire comes during the same month that U.S. President Donald Trump and his administration were, quote, looking at antitrust proceedings against tech giants Google, Amazon, and Facebook. And once again, we've talked about this, the Antitrust Act should never have been
This
passed.
is Robert Reich getting involved again.
Oh my God.
They don't see what would have happened had the antitrust not gone down, which is the market forces take over. I mean, they
were
continue.
already taking over.
I know. That's this part of the cycle. They always jump in right at the
the wrong-
pain part of the cycle, which makes perfect sense, but is totally wrong. And so here are these massive, awesome companies who have brought untold wealth to millions, hundreds of millions, billions of people, literally, and yet they're bad. They're evil, and he talks about it as though they're monopolies. And then one of the things I like he points out is, and this is Reich's opinion, he says that they have all this monopoly because, in large part, because of their patents. Well, drop the patent protection.
There you go.
Just you don't have to break up the company. Just tell them we're not going to protect you from the competition anymore.
Right.
That's all you got to do. Open the doors. You don't have to break them up. So it's just,
Yeah,
it's
the
so
copyright
backwards.
and patent protection, of course, is just unbelievably how bad it's gotten.
It's horrendous.
The idea is somehow that we would have no music without the
Right. Well, it's so funny when you in copyright class in law school.
Yeah.
They go through the justification for copyrights in about 3 days. And where they get to is they claim that the U.S. Patent Office is the mother of invention, not necessity. Okay?
Yeah.
It's not because people need shit or want to produce stuff or anything like that. It's because they know that if they do, they can patent it or copyright it and then get a profit of it, which is just totally backwards. That's not what happens. What happens is people produce stuff. And if you can produce something that's better than the last thing that was produced, you do it. It doesn't matter if there's a copyright protection or a patent protection. You do it, you market it, you sell it, you sell as many as you can until somebody else copies you. And we used to have
Go ahead.
a very limited protection, and now it's 100 years, 150
Oh, yeah,
years.
I mean, it's gone crazy. As I said, they had the Mickey Mouse protection.
Yeah, the copyrights are up to 150 years. Patents, I think, are still under 10, but still, it's just ridiculous. There's no need for that. It's a total drag on distribution, and it is not a boon to production, as they say. Now, look, sure, some companies invest more in R&D because they're looking for some patents that they can get a hold of, but then you get this wicked patent protection system where there's patents out there on objects that aren't going to be made, and they're just waiting for somebody else to make them so that they can sue that person.
Well, not only that, the other thing they do, especially in pharmacy, is they will tweak a pill right as the patent expires, and it's a new one now. Now it's a new pill, and even though it's just tweaked, and it has another 10 years or whatever it is. So I mean, but the thing is, the idea is somehow that without patent protection, stuff wouldn't get made.
Right, that's what I'm saying. They think the patent office is the mother of invention.
I think about something, for instance, on one in particular, was the cotton gin. Eli Whitney, he patented, and he spent almost his whole life fighting off the copies of people. I mean, he was suing, because if you look at a cotton gin, it's got to be one of the simplest things on the planet. You only have to see one to go ahead and make it, and even improve on it. But still, all the wasted time, whereas one of the things that you do have, if you put something together, as you say, you have a brand. And what happens is, I buy Campbell's
Bayer aspirin as opposed to regular aspirin.
Right,
exactly. Even though it's 100% the same thing.
Right.
Because you trust those people.
That's right.
And so they've been doing it for too long. They've got too much invested in it, and they're not going to just poison you. So.
Well, not only that, a lot of these people they can, because they've been in it so long, they can actually lower their costs below the competition if they have to. And what's wrong with that? I mean, they can still make a profit. Notice if they're making 100% profit on something and they have to only make 50%, okay, well, gosh darn.
Works. That works.
Anyway, I'm done. You got anything? What do you got?
I got a couple real short things. I got a little update here, tech update. Let me see if I get my tech update music going. It's not working. It's not working. Okay, well, too bad for that. Oh, there it is. So let's see. There was an electric plane produced last week with no moving parts.
I saw that.
Which was really interesting. They ionized the wing at different places to draw the air across, and they got 12 seconds of flight out of a 5-pound aircraft, which is pretty spectacular, I think. But the neat thing about it is the technology can be used to enhance other normal conventional aircraft. They can ionize the wings of a big jet and reduce the drag
Well, that's the same thing they did with the little winglets.
Yeah, which is another nice improvement.
Innovation, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, anything to save fuel. Although, speaking of fuel, gas prices are at a new low.
Oh, yeah?
The market has decided that the gas prices have dropped to somewhere around $50 a barrel from 80 or 90, and that's for the oil I'm talking about. But the market is once again figuring this out.
Yeah.
To me, it's fascinating to watch this when people are, they were saying they're going to struggle. Well, for instance, here in France, they're talking about one of the problems they've got, of course, are the huge taxes on fuel. I don't know if you know this, but I mean, I forget what it is, but it's $6 a gallon or something
Yeah.
for fuel in over there. But here, market forces decide,
Only
even though we
2
have taxes on ours too.
Yeah. Well, yep. All right. Well, hey, thanks for joining us, everybody. Let's see. We had. Oh wow, a lot of people. Buddy and Dan, Jody, Tiffany, Jean. Thanks, y'all. Hope you had a decent time. Hope we were able to say something useful. And let me get us back here to the studio. Bam. And so we'll be here next time, 4 o'clock on Wednesday. And
I probably have some updates for you.
that's right.
This is our licensed music.
That's right.
Hey, Mr. Facebook, licensed music.
Yep, there's our copyright right there. Read it and weep.
Yeah.
Thank you to Kevin McLeod for this track, Matt's Blues, and my tech update. Track was called Cold Funk. Really like that one. Anyway, we thank you guys for joining us, and leave us a message if you like. Leave us a comment. I'll put Jimmy up on the comments later.
Yeah, right.
and he can check the things out. So I guess we will see you guys next time.
4 o'clock Wednesday.